I know what you guys are thinking. Tylearn, what is this video? What are you doing right now? What if Naruto had the world? You're goofy, you're disgusting, you're getting unsubscribed. Alright, before you guys start getting mad, I do honestly think this concept could actually change the whole scenario due to the fact that for him to have the world, the stand would have to basically like correlate with like the person, since that's what stands are, they're the person's life energy. And I think this would also mean that Naruto's personality would change. And basically my ideas started further expanding, and honestly the potential for this what if is pretty insane. And I honestly think this what if could be a pretty interesting tale to tell. And with this, I'm going to basically, be doing part 1 of what if Naruto had the world. I at least want to get this what if to at least 4 parts or 3. And for that to happen, that would mean you guys would need to be engaged in the story and stuff like that. And I'm not rushing to try and finish the story. So if you guys genuinely do enjoy this what if, you know, show some support, show some love. And the majority of the people who watch my videos anyway aren't even subscribed. So you guys should subscribe and support. Obviously, you like the content, so why not subscribe? Now, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the what if, or part 1 of what if Naruto had the world. Hope you guys enjoy.
Hey, collecting rings like a Sonic. Bitches wanna party. My wrist getting heavy. Got 'em on a diet, yeah. Flex like I'm Hogan. Yo, bitch coming over. Yeah, we respect.
Okay, so like I said, for this what if to work and for Naruto to actually obtain the world, I think Naruto's ideology would need to change. Basically, Naruto isn't going to be wanting to become a Kage or anything like that. Rather, him seeing everyone basically just treat him like garbage and no one around him really noticing him or acknowledging him at least, honestly just disgusts him and makes him just hate everyone around him. Obviously, this isn't what if Naruto went rogue and he's going to lead the village or whatever, but Naruto has a negative perspective. Naruto not getting any attention as a child or getting attention from really anyone his entire life just makes him hate everyone around him because no one else wants to acknowledge him, so why should he acknowledge the people around him or show kindness? This would then lead into Naruto beginning to manifest something that is called a stand. Now, a lot of you guys are mainly Naruto watchers, so you guys probably don't know what a stand is. Basically, a stand is the user's spirit slash life force, which basically forms behind them, and it's kind of like a ghost or a spirit, so people can't really see them besides other stand users and Naruto himself. And stands have obviously unique abilities that can range from really anything. And the stand that Naruto is going to be obtaining is Dio stand, aka the world, aka, you know, the whole meme, haha, Sawado. Basically, Naruto is going to be able to stop time. However, he doesn't know this ability yet as his stand is just manifesting. Naruto around this point would be like around like 10 or 11 or maybe 9, you know, before he, you know, graduates from the academy or is near graduating the academy or him encountering Mizuki. Basically, this is pre-episode 1 Naruto. Now, I'm not going to have Naruto discover his ability yet. There's actually going to be a specific moment where he, you know, uses his ability for the first time. But for now, Naruto is just manifesting his stand, and it would be to the point to where Naruto can actually summon his stand, can summon parts of his stand, similar to like what Josuke does, like he summons a hand of his stand, and he can actually see what his stand fully looks like. So he basically knows what the world looks like and is aware of this stand. However, when he brings it out around people, people don't really see it, which perfectly reflects off of Naruto, who is being seen by everyone, but, you know, not really being seen at the same time. Like, people don't acknowledge him or anything, they just look past him, they don't really think much of him, besides someone who is, you know, having the nine-tailed fox inside of him. So just like how Naruto is metaphorically invisible, the stand is actually invisible to everyone else except for Naruto. This narratively would show how no one else is, you know, looking or acknowledging at Naruto, but Naruto acknowledges himself, and he now knows what he must do. He basically wants to change the ninja world from his own perspective, and Naruto will prove to everyone that the boy that no one acknowledged or everyone saw invisible is the person that's going to be leading the Leaf Village and basically changing the entire ninja world itself. This would eventually lead into Naruto encountering Mizuki, who would try and manipulate him to steal the scroll. Naruto, you know, would be shocked at this because someone's finally acknowledging him and giving him an important task to do, which would then lead into Naruto, you know, using the scroll and basically training with it. and this would then lead into Iruka protecting Naruto in the end, and this would then lead into Naruto, instead of using the Shadow Clone ability, would then discover a brand new ability that his stand had, and he never knew he had this. Basically, right when the Shuriken is stabbing Iruka, this would then lead into Naruto trying to basically stop it and just screaming out stop, which would then lead into his stand then being summoned and him casting a new ability. With this, Naruto would be the only one shown to actually move in this weird dimension thing that they're in, and he would then basically come to a conclusion that his ability is basically able to slow down time or basically stop time. Now, it would be for 5 seconds, however, Dio seconds aren't really seconds, and they're actually minutes, and we know this based off when Jotaro and Dio fought, and Jotaro said how him and Dio's fight was only really a couple of minutes, when in reality, in total, it's like half an hour to an hour, but that's mostly because they were in time stop most of the fight, and Dio seconds are more like minutes. So, basically, Naruto would stop time. For everyone else, it would be like 5 seconds, but for Naruto, it's actually like a minute or two. So Naruto is basically just comprehending this, and he then realizes that, you know, he can stop time, and he would then proceed to bop Mizuki. And when time resumes, we would then see Iruka, you know, looking at what would be Naruto. Now Naruto not even there at his spot, and we would then see Mizuki getting suddenly bopped, like how Kira did against Jotaro. And Mizuki would just be confused at how could this happen, and all we see is Naruto standing in front of Mizuki's vision, while Mizuki would then eventually collapse due to exhaustion. Naruto deadass bodied the fuck out of Mizuki, and this would then lead into Iruka, you know, trying to comprehend what had happened, but Naruto is not going to be telling Iruka what happened. He'll just say that, you know, he beat Mizuki. Iruka, not really knowing what happened, would just take Naruto's word and would basically promote him to Genin. This would then lead into Naruto meeting what would be Team 7, and when he establishes his goals to Kakashi, it would be a lot different from the positive Naruto we'd get. It'd be kind of a similar vibe to what Sasuke gave off, but he would basically be saying how he would change the ninja world with his own hands. And basically, he'll just change the whole world's perspective about Naruto and will be a ninja that's respected, whether it be through positive or negative means. So Naruto isn't really the hero that he is established to be in the original story. He is by far from the positive mentality that Naruto would have in basically wanting to become Hokage. He doesn't even want to become Hokage. He wants to become the ruler of the entire world. And, you know, a little bit of symbolism because of his stand, the world. And after everyone basically says their whole, you know, goals and stuff like that, Naruto would say to Kakashi after he establishes about the bell test that Naruto knows that Kakashi is not going to be able to even touch him. Kakashi would then say how we'll see about that, and we would then move on to the next morning where our ninjas would skip breakfast, which doesn't really bother Naruto in this timeline, since no matter what he eats, nothing's going to be stopping or satisfying the hunger of defeating Kakashi, his leader, supposedly. Now, we would get into Naruto waiting for Kakashi to start the test and Team 7 then scattering, but, you know, except for Naruto. Sakura and Sasuke would be watching from a distance, and Naruto would then proceed to, you know, release his stand, which Kakashi can't see at all. Naruto would then say, "Can you see the thing behind me?" As then Kakashi would then wonder, you know, what is he talking about? Naruto would be charging at Kakashi, seemingly like a caveman, which Kakashi would easily move out of the way and try and attack Naruto. However, when Kakashi already moves out the way, the stand is already behind Naruto, ready to just smack him in the face. And since Kakashi can't even see the stand, Naruto lands a clean hit and sending Kakashi flying. Kakashi recovers from the punch, and he wonders how Naruto even got that attack off. Was Naruto moving so fast that Kakashi couldn't even perceive it? What was going on? Kakashi would wonder what had happened, and so he would basically rush at Naruto this time, going on the offensive, and Naruto, due to the distance that is between Kakashi and Naruto, would have plenty of time to react with the stand and basically make his stand move forward and smack Kakashi right before he could even get near Naruto's, like, range. Like, Kakashi is just so confused how Naruto is attacking him, or he's getting hit by an attack when there's nothing there. At that point, Kakashi is done being deceived, and he would then release his Sharingan, showing that he's getting serious. And whatever Naruto is going to be doing now, Kakashi is basically going to try and put an end to it. This would then lead into Kakashi's Sharingan being able to see a figure of chakra behind Naruto. Since the Sharingan can't see, you know, chakra colors, I'll say here that a stand's life energy, and especially since it's coming from a chakra user, that being Naruto, And not to mention, stands are being incorporated into the Naruto world, so stands are going to be made up of, some type of chakra level, due to the fact that, the stand user himself uses chakra. With this, Kakashi is just rather confused at how Naruto even has this thing behind him. What is this ability? At that point, Naruto isn't aware of the Sharingan being able to see his stand, so when Naruto throws an attack out with the stand and Kakashi then dodges, he would then put 2 and 2 together and comes to the conclusion that, okay, now Kakashi is aware of his stand due to the eye. Now, this would then lead into Kakashi asking Naruto about his ability, but Naruto doesn't even know himself, and this would then lead into Naruto summoning a bunch of shadow clones who would also have their stands out. At that point, Naruto throws a bunch of Muda Muda barrages at Kakashi, which wouldn't overwhelm him at first due to him having precognition and him being massively faster against Naruto in the first place. However, he would get overwhelmed eventually, which would then lead into him jumping into the air and firing a fireball, negging all of the Naruto clones. At that point, Naruto is furious at the fact that Kakashi is getting the upper hand against him, and this would then lead into him saying the iconic words, time's flow would then stop, and this would then lead into Naruto rushing at Kakashi. Everything in time would be stopped, and Naruto would now have control over everything. Naruto would then proceed to rush at Kakashi, and he would go in for a punch initially, but he would stop himself, and he would remember to think, oh wait, the bells. That was the whole point of this exam in the first place. But at the same time, how satisfying would it be for Naruto, the person that everyone looked down upon, to beat up his Jonin that's supposed to lead him during missions and supposed to train him? So I would say here that this version of Naruto, at least not canon Naruto, but this version would be conflicting on whether or not to just take the bells and beat the exam immediately, or take his time and actually bop Kakashi a little bit and start flexing. At this point, this would then lead into Naruto coming to the conclusion that he'd rather, get carried away, get cocky and stuff like that. And it makes sense because Dio is kind of like this, but obviously way more cocky than Naruto. And obviously I have to suppress some things because Naruto isn't obviously Dio, so I have to make it kind of balanced. Naruto's arrogance would then begin to emerge as he would then begin to bop Kakashi and time stop throwing a bunch of punches at him, and when time begins to resume once again, Kakashi is then sent flying, and just suddenly he was battered and beaten. Kakashi had no idea what really happened and can't really put into words, but all he knows is whatever happened, it had something to do with Naruto. Kakashi has no other choice but to bust out some pretty powerful jutsu, and this would lead into him summoning the fire style fireball jutsu on Naruto. But what would happen is Naruto would use time stop once again and basically stop time while the fireball is shooting at him. Naruto obviously moves out of the way from the fireball, and he would proceed to head over to where Kakashi is, and he would then smack him down once again. This would then lead into Kakashi, getting overwhelmed once again. However, now this time he knows how Naruto is kind of fighting. At that point, the next time when Naruto uses time stop and tries to get the jump on Kakashi, Kakashi is able to react to Naruto due to the fact that he is predicting him before he casts time stop, and due to Sharingan giving him precognition, this would allow him to react to Naruto. So Naruto is now getting outskilled by Kakashi. And really, the only reason Naruto lost was because he got carried away, and it was because of his own arrogance. Sound familiar to you? Yeah, kind of like Dio Brando. Anyways, this would then lead into him, falling for a booby trap or him just getting tied up to a fucking tree or anything like that. And this would then lead into Kakashi beating up the rest of Team 7, and then Team 7 would have no other choice but to work together. This allows not only Team 7 to pass through the Bell exam, but once we get into after the Bell exam, we would have a 1 month gap between after the Bell exam and before the Land of Waves, where I think Kakashi would be training his students hard, especially Sakura and Sasuke. I mean, think about it. Naruto is arrogant. He doesn't want anything to do with anyone and really only cares about himself and just wants to prove himself to everyone. He's not evil by any means, but he is, not a friend to Team 7 and doesn't really care about them all that much. Regardless, due to Naruto's completely, strange and weird abilities, he's going to have to train the other members of Team 7 to basically, catch up and make sure they're not left in the dust. I'll say that Sasuke and Sakura do the water walking and tree walking exercises and get a basic rundown of chakra control, while Naruto would be focusing on himself, increasing his spiritual strength, which basically, amps the stance strength overall, just getting stronger and getting used to his ability of stopping time. Not to mention, Naruto is trying to become a lot more unpredictable, which would then lead into him coming up with a similar thing that Dio actually does against Jotaro in their final fight. Basically using weapons in time stop, which would trap the enemy. And with this, Naruto is obviously not going to be using the iconic knives Dio uses, but rather obviously, it's a Naruto version, so it would be kunai, shuriken, stuff like that, paper bombs, etc. And basically, Naruto is wanting to do this on Kakashi if they ever get a chance to fight again, because Kakashi completely embarrassed him, and the fact that he predicted Naruto's ability, and even though Naruto literally stopped him in time, just shows that Naruto has a lot less skill than the average Jonin. And because of this, Naruto is just trying to increase his time stop, get better movements after he uses time stop, using unpredictable moves, etc. This then leads into the Land of Waves arc, which I am going to clarify right now. It's going to be a lot different than its canon self, because this is obviously a different Naruto with a completely different array of abilities, etc., etc. You guys already know. Anyways, we would get into the Demon Brothers, and I'll just say Naruto stops time, and for Sasuke, Sakura, and Kakashi, Naruto just seemingly teleports and the Demon Brothers are sent flying. Also, just going to say, Naruto would probably tell his teammates and Kakashi after the bell test about his abilities and, the fact that he can stop time. However, it doesn't really matter that they are aware of the ability, as they can't really counter Naruto. Anyways, we would then get into Zabuza arriving, which, he'll throw the sword, he'll land and arrive, and Kakashi would like to protect all of Team 7. He would then get subdued by Zabuza, and now it's up to Team 7 to save Kakashi. Now, you guys are probably gonna guess, what's gonna happen next. It's the easiest thing. I mean, Naruto can stop time. They're in a situation where they're gonna need some time to, save Kakashi. You already know what's gonna happen. Naruto's gonna cast the iconic move, time's flow would then be stopped, as Naruto would just go over, get Kakashi out the water prison, and would proceed to just Muda Zabuza a bunch of times, which would send him flying, and obviously everyone would just be confused as to what had happened, but they would process and then come to the conclusion, oh, okay, Naruto just used his time stop ability. Naruto is looking like a hero and all this stuff, while Sasuke and Sakura are just standing behind Naruto's shadow, and they're not liking this feeling at all. They would try to move in and try and take down Zabuza alongside Naruto, but Naruto would just say, no, I got it. And he would proceed to stop time once again, and he would do the iconic knives moves, but obviously with kunais and stuff like that. Naruto just surrounds Zabuza with a bunch of kunai, and this would then lead to him stopping Zoroardo, and at that point, a bunch of kunais would then incapacitate Zabuza, instantly killing him at that point. I don't think Zabuza is going to survive this, especially when he gets a bunch of kunais to the throat, chest, and back. I just don't think it's possible. Call me crazy, but I don't think it's possible. I think being off guarded and turned into Swiss cheese is just, an instant death for anyone. At that point, Zabuza would then be done. The threat of Zabuza wouldn't even be a threat anymore, and this would then lead into Kakashi collapsing due to exhaustion, and Tazuna then bringing him back to his house, along with Team 7, of course. At that point, Haku would see them leave the area, but wouldn't chase them, but would see Zabuza. And at that point, Zabuza is incapacitated, and Haku can only come to one conclusion. This was the doing of Team 7. The Haku that we see at first in canon, the positive one that's cool, just a random boy in the forest, and then turned villain, shocker, none of that's happening. Haku is going to be established as a villain right from the get-go, and he's not even going to be fooling around with Team 7 or even associate with them. All he's doing is just going to go full berserk once they get to the bridge site. He'll begin his rampage by starting with Gato and his men, and he'll just basically eliminate all of them, which means Taz and his family wouldn't be getting kidnapped or any of that, so that's one good thing. And another thing that's not going to be happening here is the chakra training, because Sakura and Sasuke already did it, and Naruto doesn't really find it to be useful. Though once Sasuke and Sakura are basically flexing off their chakra control and Naruto can't really control his chakra, he just decides to say screw it and decides to do the training by himself. And with this, Naruto and Sasuke wouldn't be bonding together because Naruto's doing the training by himself, and plus he doesn't even want to associate with Sasuke all that much. And this would then lead into the Land of Waves fight, which Naruto is not going to be oversleeping or anything like that. Rather, Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, and Kakashi, and Tazuna all initially go together. They would then encounter Haku, the Mist Ninja, and basically he would just establish everything and what they've done to him and what they've done to his life by killing Zabuza. They basically got rid of the one purpose and the one reason why he was even alive. Kakashi wouldn't mind to step in, but Sasuke decides that he wants to get some shine, and so Haku and Sasuke would have their initial fight. Haku would try and cast the Ice Mirror technique on Sasuke, which would overwhelm him at first. However, I think when Naruto gets inside the dome and tries to break it, I think there is a strategy that he can use. Naruto would try to basically time his time stop correctly so he can basically stop time while Haku is, mid-jumping mirror to mirror. However, the thing is, he's not really trying to react to Haku, as he really can't because of Haku's massive speed, so he's basically trying to predict him. Naruto would think back to when Kakashi predicted Naruto, and basically Naruto would just be adapting and reading all of Haku's moves to the point to where, okay, now he has an idea of how to predict it. Naruto tries to test this theory out as he would then cast, as he's seemingly dashing towards Sasuke, getting ready to just strike him with an attack. Naruto really only had one shot at this, and when he cast, it would then be revealed that Haku is in the middle of jumping from mirror to mirror, and now Naruto could actually hit him. Naruto at that point would then close his eyes, take a deep breath, and would then proceed to hit her, or him, oh fuck, I called her her, with the absolute biggest Wombo combo of the century. Like, this is all you hear in the final part of the Land of Waves. Like, Haku is getting Wombo comboed, and he will be inevitably defeated. I think after facing off against Haku and hearing how really he only thought that he had one purpose, which was to protect Zabuza, and Naruto basically says how that logic is dumb and he should find a new purpose in life, and that should be his new drive. Zabuza wouldn't want him to just, give up. Haku would reveal that Zabuza was someone that really didn't care about Haku, or seemed like he did, and only really cared about himself. And the thing is we'll never know the truth because Zabuza is dead, so we'll never have that final moment where Zabuza and Haku are revealed that they, care for one another, and it's not just Haku cares for Zabuza. And so with this, Naruto just says to keep moving forward, and Haku would leave the Mist Village completely and become a rogue wandering ninja. As for the Land of Waves arc, the bridge will be called the Great Naruto Bridge, and the Land of Waves arc in general is just concluded. And I'll say that the establishment of the Chunin exams is similar to in canon, with Gaara taking interest in not only Sasuke, but Naruto as well. And basically, they would hear about the Chunin exams, do the little tests from Kakashi that would prove that they are worthy to actually check in the Chunin exams, where they would then encounter Rock Lee, who would like to fight Sasuke. And Naruto wouldn't mind this because he's not really a rival to Sasuke, and rather he just looked kind of down upon him. Naruto feels as if this fight isn't even close to enough to his concerns, so he's just going to be ignoring it and allowing Sasuke to get dropped on his head by Rock Lee, but luckily my guy would come in and save him. Now, after this, my guy would apologize to Team 7, and Team 7 would now be allowed to check in, and we would then move into the first Chunin exams trial, which actually Naruto might be able to actually change stuff in this timeline. Basically, his abilities time stop and no one can see his stand, so he can perfectly take out his stand and cast time stop. So basically, when Hinata allows him to cheat, or maybe Naruto earlier would just cast time stop, he would look over someone's answers and would be answering. And at that point, Naruto, after answering, would just basically go on to say, nah, I'm not going to give up, and this isn't how I'm going to lose. And after this would actually allow him to pass, and when the teacher sees Naruto's test, it would be that Naruto actually answered all the questions and actually got some of them right and some of them wrong. I don't know. I wonder why. Maybe it's because he literally stopped time to go and cheat over someone, so they can't catch him. And not to mention, again, they can't see his stand. We would then move on to the Forest of Death, which initially is kind of the same, and I don't think Sasuke or Sakura would be tricked by the clone of Naruto, because Naruto is really distinct from his canon self and isn't going to be talking about his team all that much. Rather, Naruto in this timeline is more self-centered, which allows Sasuke to detect the fake Naruto. After this, we would get into Orochimaru coming in, which would be a little bit different in this timeline due to the fact that Naruto wouldn't get off guarded and get eaten by a snake due to him using time stop to prevent this. So rather getting eaten by the snake and then exploding it from the inside, rather Naruto's not even going to be inside the snake at all and would be using this opportunity in time stop to beat the shit out of the snake. At that point, time would then resume and the snake would suddenly get sent flying, which would confuse and shock Orochimaru. Orochimaru has no idea what to make of this because this ability that Naruto just used, like, he has no idea what had just happened. Like, he doesn't know that Naruto has time stop. So, what happened? Like, did the fast forward button hit the battlefield? Like, he really doesn't know what happened. He's literally so confused, and at that point he would try and attack Sasuke or Sakura, which would lead into Naruto actually running in with his stand and actually punching him from the side. At that point, Orochimaru would be left wide open for a stand rush from Naruto, and Naruto would say how it's useless, muda muda muda. Nah, I'm kidding, but yeah, Naruto's just stand rushing him, he's bodying him. It's basically like when Dio absorbed Joseph's blood and started bopping Jotaro and kicked him in the mouth, you know, the muda 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 muda. That's what's basically happening. Like, Naruto is rocking Orochimaru due to Orochimaru not knowing what his ability is and getting surprised. At that point, Orochimaru would recover and he would ask the nine-tailed fox boy, you know, what is this power that he's using? Is it something that the Nine-Tails has while he's, you know, stretching out his hand and turning his whole hand into snakes trying to bite Naruto? Naruto would luckily dodge this, and he would say that it's none of his business, as he would then try and go in for one last punch that would almost finish the job, but luckily Orochimaru is just too much faster than Naruto, and Naruto's punches before were just lucky hits, and Orochimaru would weave and uppercut Naruto. During this time that Naruto's in the air, Orochimaru could have finished them off, but he rushes towards Sasuke instead, trying to bite his neck and give him the curse mark. Luckily, Naruto, seeing this at the last second and recovers from Orochimaru's attack, casts Zawaldo, and time has suddenly been stopped. At that point, Naruto would rush over to Orochimaru, who was just about to bite Sasuke, and basically hit him with a bunch of combos, sending him flying once when time resumes, and Orochimaru would just be shocked. He doesn't know what to do. At that point, Orochimaru would then go underground, which Naruto wouldn't, even if he used time stop, he wouldn't know where Orochimaru is coming from because, again, he's from the ground. He could be anywhere from the ground. At that point, Naruto would, you know, see Orochimaru come up, but before he could even cast time stop, we would see that underground Orochimaru managed to make a shadow clone that would be enough to off-guard Naruto and restrain him. So when he uses time stop, he would be restrained, he would need to get out of the restraint, and as time would stop, Orochimaru's fangs already sink into Sasuke's neck, giving him the curse mark. So even when time resumes, it doesn't matter. It seems that time stop can't always stop everything, and with this, Naruto would just be enraged and force Orochimaru to retreat. I don't think Naruto would rely on Kurama due to the fact that, one, Naruto isn't really enraged at the fact that Orochimaru is fighting his teammates. He just has to protect them. However, Naruto does show a different side to Team 7, and shows that, you know, even if Naruto is this arrogant brat who's really self-centered, he's actually, you know, enough to care about his teammates. So, Sasuke and Sakura see a different side from Naruto, and this would lead into Naruto actually making sure that Sasuke is alright along with Sakura. And when Dosu and his team arrive, Naruto with time stop isn't even going to be fazed by these three. Think about it, Naruto with time stop was strong enough to keep up and make Orochimaru retreat. So imagine Team Dosu, who were literally getting bodied by a curse mark stage 1 Sasuke. Yeah, I think you guys know what the results are, and Naruto would just bop Team Dosu and force them to retreat. And Rock Lee wouldn't even need to come in, but rather Team Neji would just watch from a distance, along with, you know, Shikacho. And as for the third part of the Forest of Death, which was basically them getting the scrolls and stuff like that with Kabuto, that whole thing plays out the same, and we can now move on to the final rounds of the Chunin exam. Now, for the third round, I'm just going to say that the matches are pretty much the same as in canon, except the Kiba fight, because Naruto with time stop, it's just not even close with Kiba. Like, Kiba's just gonna get slammed into the ground. Like, I don't think you guys understand, like, time stop is such a get-out-of-jail-free card that, like, things like with Kiba overwhelming Naruto, Naruto could easily prevent all of that, and it's just seemingly to the audience that Naruto's just one-shotting him, Rather, he's just using time stop and getting in every last hit he can. Now, after this, of course, we would get the training with Jiraiya, which would be interesting to see due to the fact that, you know, Naruto and Jiraiya are bonding, and this would get to the point to where Naruto would actually open up and actually show his powers towards Jiraiya and explain it to him. And Jiraiya really is shocked at these abilities that Naruto has. This was nothing that he would have thought the son of his, you know, student would have, but he's not going to tell Naruto about that, and he's just going to keep it to himself for now. Anyways, Naruto would proceed to be trained by Jiraiya, and Jiraiya would show authority towards, you know, Naruto. And the thing is that Naruto would have been getting bodied by Jiraiya had it not been for his time stop, and his time stop is the only reason why Naruto's even living right now. And after all those punches that Naruto's throwing at Jiraiya, Jiraiya's still eating it. And with this, Naruto would basically give up the little spar that they would have, and Naruto would then proceed to be trained by Jiraiya and would learn things about summoning and overall grow as a ninja and as a person. Naruto hasn't actually trained with someone for really his entire life and has only trained with people like Team 7 and them out of just, you know, why not, let's train, rather than like willingly wanting to genuinely train with this person. And Naruto having this feeling with Jiraiya is something that he's never had before, and he's kind of glad he has it. And this would then lead into the fight between Neji and Naruto, where Naruto would summon out his stand and would be just a lot stronger than his canon self and would grow as a person a lot more. And so when Neji basically disrespected Hinata and all that stuff, Naruto would clarify at the beginning of their fight that he is going to basically avenge Hinata and show to everyone that this person that everyone neglected all long ago can defeat this brat of a ninja, aka Neji Hyuga. The fight would then begin, and Neji would activate his Byakugan, seeing the stand behind Naruto. Because he can see chakra points, I would assume that in the Naruto world, the stands are made of somewhat of chakra, so Neji would be able to see the stand, or at least a figure of chakra energy behind Naruto. Basically, Neji pulls off a similar thing to what Kakashi did back when Naruto first fought Kakashi. And with this, Naruto would proceed to just fight Neji and wouldn't try and use his time stop initially. And this would lead into Naruto actually going head to head with Neji due to him, you know, obviously being a lot more powerful and getting training from Jiraiya. So this would stack on top, allowing him to actually keep up with Neji, rather than exactly needing Kurama's chakra to actually keep up and be even with Neji. Now in this timeline, Naruto's going blow for blow with him in his base form, and when he amps himself up even more and uses Kurama's chakra, he would overwhelm Neji. At that point, Neji would be using the rotation, and Naruto's clashing with his kunai, and Naruto's kunai with Kurama enhancing him would overpower Neji's rotation. However, Neji wanted this, as Neji now has Naruto wide open for a full barrage of his chakra points getting negged. However, as Neji throws out his palm strike and then says to himself, "I've won," we would then see time suddenly stopping, and Naruto is a little disappointed in himself that he had to resort to such a technique against Neji, this little rat of a ninja, but he honestly doesn't care and is just going to use his full power now and proceeds to absolutely obliterate Neji. Suddenly, you know, time would resume and Neji would just get sent flying across the stage, and Neji would be declared the loser and Naruto would be the winner. Now, I'll just quickly go over, like, the rest of the Chunin exams, or the Konoha Crush Arc, I guess. Orochimaru would still face off against Hiruzen. Hiruzen would still die in the battle, but still seal Orochimaru's arms. And as for the whole Gaara situation, Naruto would make it a lot earlier due to the fact that he's in time stop, and he has Dio seconds, so he's just flying around. And he would essentially presume to just fly over to Gaara before either Sasuke, like, gets negged by the curse mark, or before he's about to get finished off, or even earlier in the fight, and Sasuke just watches Naruto completely body Gaara. He wouldn't even need to use time stop. I think he would use it initially, but once Shukaku comes out, Naruto knows that time stop isn't really going to be useful here, and just decides to use Gamabunta. With this, Naruto actually wins the battle, Talk no Jutsu's Gaara, and completely embarrasses Sasuke, because Sasuke was fighting Gaara, and Naruto just took his battle, and basically just beat up an even stronger Gaara than the one that Sasuke was struggling with. Essentially, this concludes the Konoha Crush Arc, and Jiraiya and Naruto would depart from the village trying to find the new Hokage, Tsunade, who can also help with Rock Lee's injuries. Naruto isn't going to be bribed by Jiraiya from a new jutsu. Rather, Naruto actually respects Jiraiya to the point to where he would like to come along with him on this journey, and Jiraiya wouldn't mind having Naruto along, so Naruto goes along with Jiraiya. So we see a different side of Naruto here, and it's kind of similar to what we saw in the Forest of Death, but it's a lot more evolved here because Naruto has been bonding with Jiraiya for over a month. Now, with this, Naruto and Jiraiya would book a hotel room, which would then lead into the iconic Itachi and Kisame encounter. And we would then get Naruto and Itachi looking at each other eye to eye, and instead of, him leaving the room or anything and him encountering Itachi and Kisame, he would immediately cast Time Stop and basically hop outside the window and would try and find where Jiraiya would potentially be, which is essentially near a woman's locker room. But as Naruto is going out to go and look for Jiraiya, we see Naruto actually encounter Jiraiya holding a woman. Naruto resumes time, and this would then lead into Naruto explaining to Jiraiya about everything, and this would then lead into him using Time Stop once again and heading over to the hotel while Jiraiya would be on his way as well. But unlike in canon, Naruto and Jiraiya would be heading from a different direction, and when they arrived, they would see Sasuke already getting ready to encounter Itachi. But with this, Naruto stops Sasuke from going on ahead by himself, and he proceeds to actually help alongside Sasuke and try and fight Itachi and Kisame. But Jiraiya would then intercept both of them, saying that it's not safe, and he would proceed to go on to fight the two, and Kisame and Itachi would proceed to retreat like in canon. You guys might be thinking, oh, wouldn't Sasuke not be as mad as he would be in canon? But you have to understand in the Konoha Crush arc, he would be a lot more mad at Naruto, so it would kind of counterbalance. Not to mention, Jiraiya would mention to Naruto that they arrived here because of the nine-tailed fox seal inside of Naruto. So really, Itachi wasn't even going after Sasuke, which would get him even more enraged. So yeah, setting up with Sasuke with the curse mark and him leaving the village, honestly, is kind of an easy thing to do in this what if, due to the fact that it's an arrogant Naruto showing off to Sasuke, and Sasuke is a person who would literally leave the village and go to extreme means to grow powerful. Plus, it's different and unique from my other what ifs where I have Sasuke kind of stay in the timeline most of the time and just kind of vibe with Kakashi in the Leaf Village. So, we're just gonna kind of let things play similar out to in canon. Now, with this, Naruto wouldn't be wanting to learn the Rasengan, so I don't think he would learn it necessarily. And after Jiraiya and Naruto meet up with Tsunade and Tsunade disrespects the Hokage, Naruto doesn't really mind this and doesn't really care. However, he would like to challenge someone who could be a potential Hokage candidate. And with this, Tsunade would only use her fingers, and Naruto would smirk, saying even though he's a child, he's a lot more powerful than a lot of people give him credit for. And he would then immediately decide to use Time Stop and would proceed to make a fool out of Tsunade. However, Tsunade would, gain her composure after being suddenly attacked and would essentially smash the ground towards Naruto's way. Naruto wouldn't even use Time Stop due to the fact that Tsunade's attack was too fast and too strong and would overwhelm Naruto. With this, Tsunade would walk over to Naruto and pick him back up, saying that it was pretty impressive that he managed to get a hit off her. Naruto would say whatever, and he would proceed to turn to Jiraiya, and Jiraiya would then tell Tsunade about this boy's ability, which would shock her. What kind of ability is this? She's never seen something like this in her entire life. It's almost similar to the Yellow Flash's teleportation, but instead he's actually, stopping time and moving from place to place, then resuming time. It's an insane ability, and it's like Minato's ability, but on a completely different scale. So it's kind of a little symbolic to, how Naruto's connected to Minato, a little foreshadow. Anyways, we would move on to, instead of Naruto basically having the learning curve to Rasengan, it's just him kind of adapting his Time Stop and kind of ways for him to just adapt in general because Tsunade made a complete fool out of him. So Naruto's ego is a little down in the dumps, and with this, Naruto would just be improving and adapting his Time Stop, and this would then lead into him actually training to the point to where Naruto is actually being a lot more unpredictable and overall having a lot more better skill and a lot more accustomed to the Time Stop. Anyways, this would lead into Orochimaru and Kabuto intervening in this arc and them giving the offer towards Tsunade. Tsunade would deny the offer, and this would lead into the final battle between Tsunade, Orochimaru, and Kabuto, and then Jiraiya, who would be, at his 30% state due to him being drugged by Tsunade. and Naruto coming in to fight Kabuto. Instead of Naruto grabbing the kunai with his bare hands, it would be the stand, and the stand, after grabbing the kunai with his bare hands, would lift Kabuto up in the air and would proceed to say useless, as he would then punch him up into the air, sending him flying. Naruto looked towards Tsunade as Kabuto is being sent into the air, and he would say how he's been training with this time stop and been trying to use it in different ways. And he's decided to use something that he's really never came up with, even though it's kind of a simple thing and Naruto feels stupid for it. And that is to basically use time stop as a additional thing, not really using it for main damage, because if it doesn't fully one-shot the person, it's gonna kind of, bite Naruto back. So essentially, Naruto's just going to be trying to use more normal damage and time stop basically doing additional damage rather than the time stop being the primary focus. And with this, Naruto would use time stop while Kabuto's in the air and would proceed to bop him and show that this additional damage thing, rather than using just time stop as a primary, is actually a lot more effective. So yeah, Kabuto gets dropped on his skull, leading it to Orochimaru escaping only by himself and Kabuto being taken in to try and gather any information that they can on Orochimaru, which doesn't really work at first, but eventually it will work. You'll see. We'll get into that later. Anyways, after this, Sasuke and Naruto wouldn't have their hospital fight because there's nothing really leading up to that, and Sasuke wouldn't even be in the hospital in the first place, but rather Sasuke would still mysteriously leave the village, and this would lead into the Sasuke retrieval arc happening and the Sasuke retrieval team being formed. Now, you guys have to understand that time stop in this situation where they're chasing down an enemy is actually really useful, considering the fact that Naruto hypothetically is chasing them down and basically getting so much time in ahead of them. He can easily try and capture Sasuke, and I think this would happen, this would lead into Naruto capturing Sasuke maybe earlier, but when Kimimaro arrives, I think he would off guard Naruto and Naruto would have to be forced to fight him. Luckily, Rock Lee comes in and Sasuke runs away, and Naruto and Sasuke would have their final battle, while everything else pretty much is the same. And all these fights are either going to happen all at once, or they happen a little bit later, considering the fact that Naruto is going to be the main one being chased down, and they're going to have to try and defend him. But regardless, I think all the fights are going to be happening at once, which should be more chaotic. However, this is such a good opportunity to show Shikamaru's leadership and actually leading the Sasuke retrieval team into a good direction and into a W. And with the assistance of Kankuro and Temari, of course, because they would still come in and save them, they would be able to defeat the Sound 4. And as for Kimimaro, he would be defeated by Rock Lee and Gaara. And when Naruto and Sasuke have their final fight, Sasuke would make a specific request for him not to use time stop, and for Naruto to try and get a mark on his headband. With this, Naruto would be at his base power, and when he, taps into Kurama, Naruto wouldn't be trying to kill Sasuke, but rather just scratch that headband, forcing Sasuke to pierce his lungs, and Naruto not being able to use time stop because he wouldn't be conscious, and Sasuke would fully escape, which would just get Naruto enraged because the one ability that could have saved them all, basically Naruto didn't use it because of Sasuke's sake, and he's an idiot for doing that. Naruto's arrogance got in the way and he should have thought more about the situation. And with this, when they get back to the hospital, Naruto blames himself for what happened to Sasuke, and Jiraiya would say, don't worry about it, we'll get some more information on Kabuto, but for now, Naruto needs to focus on the Akatsuki because in the next 2.5 years, they're going to be going after him, and Naruto needs to train hard. So Naruto departs off and everyone else trains just like in canon, and Sasuke would train with Orochimaru like in canon, obviously. Now, with Naruto and Jiraiya, Naruto would be learning about the Rasengan, of course, and he would also learn about the Mega Rasengan, since I think Jiraiya would like to teach that to Naruto, as he did teach his other student, Minato, or aka Naruto's father, but Naruto doesn't know that yet, that technique. Anyways, Naruto would learn the Rasengan and would manage to master it, and would like to use this jutsu, in unison with his time stop, essentially just using a bunch of shadow clones with the Rasengan and all those shadow clones moving in time stop and Wombo comboing with the Rasengan. Just a little special move for Naruto. He just calls it time stop style Rasengan, a little lame, corny name like that. And as for Sasuke, his abilities, all that stuff he gains in canon, he would also gain alongside with Sakura's main abilities and Kakashi's. Basically, everyone gets their same thing except for Naruto, when he gets the Rasengan and also increases his time stop. I'm going to say here Naruto can now use his time stop up to 7 seconds rather than 5. And he's actually shown some pretty amazing progress in terms of training, and has actually increased his spiritual strength to the point to where his stand and Naruto himself are actually pretty top tier. In terms of physical stats, he's actually above Kakashi and Sakura, and in his base form could probably press base Sasuke, or if not be above base heavy Sasuke. So that's a little power skill for this version of Naruto. And the other characters, they get their same power boost. With this, Naruto has obviously extra seconds or extra Dio seconds, which are kind of like extra minutes, to essentially just vibe and time stop and attack his opponents. Like how I said before, he doesn't mainly like to go for time stop anymore. Rather, he uses it as like a after effect, for extra damage, since that's how time stop is kind of used at its best. But he's gotten so used to it and so good at using time stop to the point to where even while he's being attacked, similar to someone like Polnareff attacking Dio, he would be able to time stop just like how Dio would. So yeah, his time stop is kind of actually broken. Now, with this, we would move on to Kakashi, Sakura, and all of them, which their training is literally the exact same in canon, along with Sasuke's, because Sasuke leaves the village, and, everything else is just the same, and the only person that's getting stronger and really changing in the scenario is Naruto. Now, if you want to say that it might be unlikely for Naruto to kind of train under Kurama, since he would be mainly focusing on his time stop ability, honestly, I would really disagree with that, because, Jiraiya knows the Nine Tails can be useful, and obviously Naruto knows the use of the Nine Tails chakra when he faced off against Neji. So it makes perfect sense why Naruto would like to use Kurama and also time stop. Like, he doesn't just have to choose one or the other, he can do both. So I think Naruto would undergo the training and Jiraiya would still get damaged, and the Four Tails would still be summoned during the 2.5-year gap. Now, we would move on and we would get into the Kage rescue mission, which the setup is pretty much the same, along with basically most of the arc, except for the Itachi arc and when they arrive, because the Itachi part of that arc, the Itachi clone is going to get dropped by Naruto using time stop, and when Naruto's in time stop, he can easily just move around and find where the Akatsuki hideout is. And honestly, in this scenario, their main objective is to save Gaara, let alone, fight them. And Naruto isn't even supposed to fight them because they just want to go after and kill him. So with this, Naruto would release the barrier earlier and probably be by himself since everyone else can't move in time stop. And this would lead into him seeing Gaara and Sasori extracting the Biju from Gaara. Naruto would be enraged, and his first instinct is to go in and strike the two, but, he has a priority. So he uses time stop and, resists Kurama's urge to try and fight them, and would use this advantage in time stop to basically grab Gaara and get the hell out of there. Now, with this, we could honestly completely prevent the whole Gaara encounter with Naruto, because Naruto in time stop has so much time to just grab Gaara's body and just get the hell out. I genuinely don't see, Naruto wanting to stop, resume time, drop Gaara off, then fight the Akatsuki. That just sounds really stupid in my opinion. I think what would rather happen is, instead of Gaara going back to the Leaf Village, he probably would be supervised under the Leaf Village, which would hurt Gaara's heart that he can't protect his own village, but let's face it, they're either gonna have to go back and fight the Akatsuki members, which the whole point is just to bring back Gaara, or we bring Gaara back to the village and then repeat literally what had just happened. And so with this, I will say Chiyo would be the perfect candidate to be the next Kage. And with this, Gaara and Sasori, even if they were, trying to go around trying to look for Gaara at the Sand Village or trying to look for Team 7 or any of them, I don't think they would be found. Furthermore, I do think that Gaara would just be chilling in the Leaf Village for a little bit, and the Akatsuki would inevitably plan a, pain assault or an assault on the village. We'll get to that later. As for the Orochimaru arc, Yamato and Sai are not pulling up because Kakashi is around, and Kakashi would lead Team 7 into a similar direction to what Yamato did, and Naruto would be blinded by Kurama's rage and fight against Orochimaru without time stop. And this would then lead into the Sasuke encounter, where Naruto at first wouldn't use time stop, and when he's getting bodied and Sasuke and Orochimaru almost retreat, Naruto stops time and basically off-guards Sasuke and Orochimaru. With this, Sasuke is actually brought back to the village, and he would obviously be, under supervision, and Orochimaru would be locked up in the maximum security, prison of Konoha. Now, for the Kakuzu arc, I think Naruto would still like to learn his nature element and basically learn that aspect of his powers, so I guess the Rasen Shuriken arc can all, still happen, but that doesn't really matter because that just means the story doesn't change. And this would then lead into the next arc that would actually change, which is the Pain Assault. What about the Itachi retrieval arc? Obviously, it's not going to happen given the fact that, Sasuke is taken back to the Leaf Village, so he can't go out and travel and, chase down Itachi. Also, Sasori and Deidara are alive, and the Akatsuki members are overall a lot more stacked up. And Jiraiya would die, and Naruto would then undergo Sage Mode training, and luckily, after Naruto learns Sage Mode, he decides to use Time Stop to just, rush over there. Which would mean that Naruto, after learning Sage Mode and using Time Stop to basically stop time and, rush over there, this would mean Naruto arrives way earlier in the Pain Assault before the, devastating Shinra Tensei, and would arrive around when Gaara, Kakashi, and Sasuke are fighting in unison against the Asura and Diva Path. And with this, Naruto just puts his hand out, telling them to stop and just stop fighting, and he'll take it from here. This would then lead into Sasuke, Gaara, and Kakashi, along with the rest of the Leaf Village, just watching Naruto in action. Sasuke would be frustrated given the fact that Naruto closed the gap and made the gap even larger between Sasuke and Naruto, even larger than the gap that Sasuke left between them earlier in the series. Sasuke's just fuming, and Gaara and Kakashi are amazed at Naruto just going at it, fighting these Akatsuki members. And when Sage Mode runs out, and obviously the Diva Path would try and drain Naruto's chakra, it wouldn't even be needed because Naruto has Time Stop. So already, even without Sage Mode, he has an ability to counter the Rinnegan. Since, there are no blind spots to the Rinnegan, but the Rinnegan literally can't see time being stopped and, Naruto moving through that. So he would just easily neg Pain, like it's not even close. And with this, he would not even meet Minato, he wouldn't even go berserk with Kurama, go to the six-tailed V2 state. None of that would even happen. And as for Killer B would just get capped by Kisame or, a combination of Kisame, Deidara, Sasori. Doesn't really matter. I think that Killer B would definitely get overwhelmed, and this would force a Kage summon to be caused, with Naruto going along with Tsunade, along with Gaara. Now, hear me out. You guys have to understand that Gaara is someone who knows what it's like to be a Kage. And him watching Naruto basically just save the whole village like how a Hokage should or a Kage should is honestly a really amazing sight for him. He tells Naruto that he is really proud of him. But Naruto knows deep down Gaara wants to go back to his village so bad just so he can, raise it, raise a community. And for that, Naruto and Gaara would have a little bit of a deep conversation about this, and Gaara would admit to Naruto that he is very sad that he can't go back to his village and do his job. And for that reason, Naruto tries to make it up to him by trying to make him a Hokage 8 alongside Naruto so they can, protect Tsunade if they do anything. And not to mention, before Tobi arrives and disrupts the Kage Summit, Gaara can actually ask Chiyo how's the village running, how's Kankuro, how's Tamari, all that stuff. And it would be a really sad scene for Gaara because Gaara knows that his village is growing and, moving forward without him. But soon, the village will meet him once again. This would then lead into Tobi arriving and declaring the 4th Great Ninja War. And luckily, Obito sees the one-tailed Jinchuriki, the Jinchuriki that he needed. With this would then lead into Obito deciding to, engage in the plan that he wanted. And that plan is to raid the summit. With this, Deidara and Sasori, along with Kisame, would arrive onto the summit, with Deidara and Sasori preparing to fight Gaara, but Naruto and Tsunade coming to his defense, and the Raikage trying to get up from his chair, but Obito would blitz him and sit him back down. At that point, the Raikage would get enraged, unleashing the V1 cloak and trying to rush at Obito. Obito would just phase right through him, and the Raikage would seemingly about to punch Naruto, and this would then lead into the Raikage stopping himself in his tracks. Obito feels victory near his grasp, like he can almost taste it. After collecting these two and extracting their Biju, he'll become the Ten Tails, and it'll all be over. However, due to the Raikage distracting Obito, he can't really do anything, so this leaves into Deidara and Sasori trying to take him out. With Deidara and Sasori actually encountering not only Gaara and Naruto, but also Tsunade and Inoki, who would get up from his chair and prepare to fight with Tsunade. And Chiyo as well. And this would then lead into Chiyo preparing to face off against Sasori to finish, whatever is undone between her and her grandson. With Tsunade backing her up, which basically leaves Chiyo with someone who is essentially a better Sakura to take on Sasori, which would mean that the same fight that Chiyo would have with Sasori in the beginning of Shippuden would happen here, if not with way less difficulty given the fact that Tsunade has her Byakugo seal. And as for Deidara is just going to be getting comboed by Gaara and Naruto, especially with the Naruto who can use Time Stop, and Gaara alone who is already capable of damaging and harming Gaara. And Inoki would just basically be getting rid of the remains of Sasori, and this would then lead into the Raikage, Mei, and everyone else trying to focus on Obito, which doesn't work because Obito just can't get hit. After realizing Sasori and Deidara are defeated, Obito would then get enraged and would decide to try and blitz to the scene and try and basically kidnap Naruto and Gaara, which would almost work, but luckily Naruto would perceive him in time with Sage Mode, and he would proceed to cast. Time's flow would then be suddenly stopped, with Naruto just grabbing Gaara and Tsunade and getting the hell out of there. Inoki and Chiyo would be safe as well thanks to Naruto, and overall when time resumes, all Toby's going to see is just no one in front of him in the blink of an eye, and he would just get enraged off this. At this point, there's really no purpose for him to be at the Kage Summit, so he just kind of retreats for now. Gaara would be getting mad, but they both have to understand, from Naruto's perspective that is, that they're both Jinchuriki and they both can't even be near the Akatsuki at all. They're not even supposed to be leaving the village. But because of, Naruto saving the village and him wanting to be Tsunade's guard, he decides to. And they did take out 2 Akatsuki members, and not to mention Chiyo and Inoki were, put to safety. So Obito isn't going to be there fighting the 5 Kage because all he really wants is Naruto and Gaara. With this, they would return back to the Leaf Village, and they would basically report what had just went down, with the 4th Great Ninja War obviously being declared, and the 5 nations having no other choice but to gather together. I don't know if that was something I mentioned earlier, but yeah, the 4th Great Ninja War being declared, all that stuff is pretty much the same, and in this timeline, there would be obviously no reanimation army or no Kabuto on Obito's side, given the fact that, 1, Kabuto is, dropped on his head and is taken in prison along with Orochimaru. And Obito literally can't even manipulate Sasuke given the fact that Sasuke isn't even near Obito and is in the literal Leaf Village. Speaking of, Sasuke would still be in the village being guarded by Kakashi, and he literally can't leave at all. And this would inevitably lead into Itachi becoming so sick to the point to where he'll probably die. Because if you guys didn't remember, at this point in the story, Itachi was going to die, and that's why he wanted to fight Sasuke, and, blah, blah, blah. But this time, he would just be constantly getting sick, and probably just get worse and worse, and eventually Itachi would just die of his sickness. With this, Itachi would never talk to Sasuke, or Sasuke would never learn the truth, and Sasuke wouldn't even have his MS. He would only have his 3 Tomo Sharingan. On the bright side, though, he would at least have his curse mark, giving him that 10 times boost on top of his heavy base form. And this would then lead into, once again, the 5 nations working together, with Chiyo leading the Sand Village and basically giving the speech rather than Gaara. As for Obito's preparation for the war, since there is not going to be a reanimated army given the fact that Orochimaru and Kabuto are literally taken out of the story, this would mean that Obito would have to go with the next best thing, and that's just to do it with his own hands and the rest of the Akatsuki, which is just him and Kisame. And this would then lead into Toby and them having a White Zetsu army, albeit not as strong as in canon due to them not being enhanced, but regardless, it's still a White Zetsu army. And we still have Black Zetsu himself, and Obito would go over and bop Konan and would proceed to steal Nagato's eyes. Also, probably forgot to mention this as well, that the rest of the Pain arc, with, Naruto talking to Jutsuing Nagato, all that stuff still happens. So, just in case you guys got confused, that still happens as per normal. I just didn't mention it. Obviously, there's still going to be that one guy in the comments who's going to be arguing with me about it. But, regardless, we would move on into the war with Naruto, obviously, not getting KCM whatsoever because Killer Bee's not even around, not meeting Kushina, and him just being guarded at the Leaf Village. I think he would be guarded by a couple of Jonin, and Sasuke would be staying in the village as, they don't really trust him and he might just wander off. So Sasuke for now is going to be staying in the village, but if they need him, then he can be deployed. So at the moment, Naruto and Sasuke are chilling, and I think this could give him an opportunity to actually talk, because they haven't really talked since, Naruto and Sasuke's fight. Basically, this would let out all the tension and steam. At least I'm hoping they do that, with Sasuke telling Naruto that he went down this path to try and take out Itachi and to basically become stronger than everyone around him, including Naruto. And basically, I want this conversation to basically let out any steam or tension that Naruto and Sasuke have, so they would basically get out and work together to basically go out into the war, be stopped by the Raikage, but obviously Naruto would use his stand and time stop to prove that they are allowed to go into the war. And when Naruto uses time stop and seemingly blitzes the Raikage just sees a hollow Minato, right above Naruto, showing that Naruto is kind of like the new Minato with this time stop. It's kind of like the scene with Naruto and Jiraiya and Minato on his side. Yeah, kind of like that. And with this, Naruto and Sasuke would be deployed off to the battlefield, with Naruto using shadow clones and even using time stop to basically just seemingly bop all the Zetsus. And just like in my other what ifs, Kisame would be inevitably defeated by an enraged V2 Raikage who would avenge his brother once and for all in a hard fought battle. As for Obito, he would eventually get jumped by Kakashi and Guy and even Sasuke, but I think initially Naruto would like to fight him at first with his time stop. And I really don't see how Obito's going to counter this. Because literally the second Naruto time stops when Obito isn't phasing, it's game over. And when Kakashi and Guy arrive, this makes it a lot easier, and Naruto would just bop Obito. And it's kind of a victory in our hero's favor. Like, it's really not that hard for Naruto just to use time stop when Kakashi says, okay, he's wide open, you can use it now. Like, that's literally what Kakashi did the entire war. He really carried that whole fight with Obito, but regardless, Obito doesn't even have the 6 Biju as well, and there's no reanimated ninja even wandering. Like, the war is such an overwhelming victory for the 5 nations, especially when they have Naruto, who can literally stop time. Naruto and Obito would have one last final beatdown, with Obito and Naruto being so fatigued to the point to where they can't even use their abilities, and they're basically just using, hand-to-hand combat and just their physical prowess to try and overwhelm one another. Naruto would say the words Zawaldo, and this would, scare Obito, forcing him to just rush at Naruto. But this is what Naruto wanted, so he basically just didn't use time stop, but baited him to act like he was, to basically just weave him and then finish him off with a final combo. He would say how it's useless, or, muda, 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 but you get me. Inevitably, the war is won by the 5 nations. A lot easier, like less than high difficulty, probably mid diff or low diff, honestly. Like, it was so easy for them. And this would basically conclude peace for the ninja world, and Naruto would inevitably become Hokage, marry Hinata, and yes, have a kid.
Not Boruto, it's just Himawari. Yep, just Himawari, no Boruto. Boruto's canceled. Peace out, guys.
But if you guys did enjoy this video, if you guys liked it, be sure to leave a like, share it with your friends. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, subscribe if you are new. I'm trying to hit 40K by 2021. Come on, we only have a few more days, and the majority of my viewers aren't even subscribed. So what are you doing? Come on, subscribe. Hit the notification bell as well, so you're notified and updated to my upload. Peace out, guys. Bye.